Welcome to the Impressa Era podcast, a realm where intuition flows through real life and your personal power is celebrated. I'm your host, Queen Impressa, and together we'll explore tarot, self-mastery, sensuality, and aligned growth. Now take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and let's get into it. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of the Impressa Era podcast, the podcast where we relax our shoulders, unclench your jaws, sip something comforting, and have the conversations that help us reconnect to ourselves underneath all of the noise. I'm your host, Queen Impressa, and today we are talking about something that has been sitting really heavily on my spirit. So today we're talking about visibility. We're talking about privacy and sacred access. We're going to talk about the pressure to constantly be perceived, constantly be available, posting, performing, proving, and producing for an audience that sometimes doesn't even deserve access to us in the first place. I think somewhere along the way, especially with social media becoming such a massive part of our lives, people started believing that if something wasn't witnessed, it somehow didn't happen or it doesn't matter. Like if a healing journey is not posted step by step, people think it didn't happen. If a relationship isn't displayed online, people think that it's not real or that it's secretive. Or if a business isn't constantly visible, screaming for attention and throwing content into the void every single day, people begin to panic and feel like the company's failing. We have, as a society, created a culture where silence feels suspicious and privacy feels almost like rebellion. And that is so terrifying when you really think about it, because as a human being, we were never meant to be perceived at this level every single day. There are people online right now who know what you ate for breakfast, where you cried last week, what your living room looks like, who hurt your feelings, what fight you had with your partner, what your child looks like, what your deepest insecurities are. Meanwhile, there are strangers walking around carrying these pieces of your spirit that they've never even earned access to. So I really need us to start talking honestly about energetic access, because not everybody who can see you should have access to you. Now, one of the biggest lessons I've been learning in this current season of life is that visibility and intimacy are not the same thing. Attention and connection are not the same thing. Being witnessed by thousands of people online does not automatically mean you're loved deeply or understood or protected, for that matter. And in fact, sometimes the more visible you become, the more disconnected from yourself you can start to feel, because you begin curating your life around the perception instead of peace. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from constantly feeling watched. And I don't even mean that in some paranoid way. I mean like emotionally watched, spiritually watched, constantly aware that every move you make could be interpreted, consumed, criticized, copied, or even misunderstood. There are people right now who can't even enjoy beautiful moments in real time anymore because their brain immediately jumps to, oh, should I post this? Should I get my phone out? I should be recording this, before they even ask themselves if they actually experience the moment. And that is just losing the entire presence. It's not presence at all. It's just performance. And listen, I understand that many of us are building businesses online. Many of us are creators, entrepreneurs, educators, and people trying to create opportunities through social media. Visibility does matter in some capacity. Marketing matters, and showing up with consistency matters too. I'm not saying, disappear into the woods and become a mysterious cryptid that only talks through moonlight and carrier pigeons. What I'm saying is that somewhere along the line, many people forgot that boundaries matter too. Everybody should not know every single thing about you. Everyone should not have access to the version of you that is still becoming. I think some of the most sacred things in life require privacy while they're growing. Think about, pregnancy for a moment. There's a reason a baby develops in the womb before entering the world. Think about seeds being planted underground. Nobody applauds a seed while it's beneath the dirt. Nobody rushes underground every single day demanding proof that growth is happening. There is a level of trust involved there and quiet transformation. But people don't extend that same grace to themselves anymore or anyone around them. Everybody feels pressure to reveal every stage of the process immediately. We announce ideas way too early. We share relationships too early. We expose our dreams to people way too early and post every plan before it has roots. Then, when things fall apart under the weight of outside opinions and jealousy and energy, we wonder why we suddenly feel disconnected from our intuition. And it's because too many voices entered the room before your spirit had a chance to speak clearly. I truly believe there are seasons where the universe, your ancestors, spirit, whatever language resonates with you, intentionally pulls you into the quieter waters so you can hear yourself again. Because not every season is meant to be loud or highly visible or externally validated. Some seasons are meant for rebuilding and resting, and some seasons are meant for protecting your energy while your roots strengthen underground. One thing I have noticed about people who are genuinely secure within themselves is that they no longer feel that compulsive need to explain everything. They no longer need every stranger to understand them. And they don't panic when everybody is not immediately clapping for them or their success. And there's such a calmness that comes with emotional maturity where you realize your life is not a group project. And that realization changes everything. You stop over explaining your boundaries, announcing every single move. You stop seeking permission to evolve, and you stop handing out pieces of yourself, hoping strangers will validate your worth. And honestly, one of the most spiritual things you can do is reclaim your right to privacy in a world that profits from your overexposure. I know some people struggle with this because social media has convinced us that constant visibility equals relevance. So if you disappear for a little while, people act like you died or that you're just no longer relevant. If you stop posting every day, people start assuming that you failed. Or if you become quieter, people assume something is wrong. But more often than not, quietness is not anything like depression or sadness or any of that. Sometimes it's discernment and discipline. Sometimes quietness is finally realizing that you don't owe the internet unrestricted access to your nervous system. And I think about a lot actually about how many people are so exhausted because they built entire online identities around accessibility. They became the therapist friend, the motivational friend, the strong friend, the endlessly available friend, the I answer every DM and every text immediately friend, the person who constantly pours and pours into everyone else while slowly disconnecting from themselves. Then eventually resentment begins building quietly underneath the surface because humans are not infinite wells. You're allowed to close those gates sometimes and log off and say, this part of my life is sacred. You're allowed to build things quietly and experience moments without documenting them. One thing spiritual people especially need to understand is that energy travels through attention. So, not everyone looking at you is looking at you lovingly. Not everybody consuming your content wants the best for you. Some people admire you while simultaneously resenting you. And some people are inspired by you while secretly hoping you fail. Some people study with envy or jealousy instead of appreciation. And some people develop parasocial relationships where they actually feel entitled to your energy because you have shared vulnerable parts of yourself online. And this is exactly where discernment becomes so important. It's wisdom at this point. It's understanding that accessibility should be earned and not automatically granted. And I think especially for women, and particularly empathic women, nurturing women, spiritually sensitive women, there is this pressure to always remain emotionally available. Society praises women who overextend themselves. Society rewards women who sacrifice themselves, and it romanticizes exhaustion in women, constantly giving to everyone else while neglecting themselves completely. But let me say something very clearly in this podcast today. Self abandonment is not kindness. Burning yourself out for public consumption does not equal success. And making yourself endlessly accessible is not proof that you are loving or worthy of being loved. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is close that door, light your candle, silence your phone, and remember who you are away from everybody else's projections. I know for me personally, some of the biggest spiritual breakthroughs in my life happened privately, in quiet rooms, during seasons where I stopped performing and actually allowed myself to sit with my own spirit, honestly. They happened when I stopped asking everybody else what they thought and finally listened inward instead. There's something deeply healing about becoming less reactive to outside perception. When you stop needing everyone to understand your process, you finally become free enough to actually experience it. I think many people are grieving versions of themselves right now that were created entirely for survival. There are people listening to this episode who don't even know what they genuinely enjoy anymore because every hobby became content, every outfit became content, every meal, every vulnerable moment, every healing moment. Everything became monetized and displayed and consumed until they lost the intimacy of simply existing. That is why rest feels uncomfortable for so many people now. Silence and privacy and slowness feels uncomfortable because many people have accidentally trained themselves to associate worthiness with visibility and productivity. But your spirit does not bloom under constant surveillance. So if you're listening today, I really need whoever's listening to understand that you do not have to prove your healing publicly for it to be real. You don't have to constantly update everyone on your growth in order for your growth to matter. You don't need to applause every step of the journey. Some things become more powerful when they're just protected and silent. And there's also something to be said about the beauty of mystery. Not games or manipulation. I'm talking about natural mystery. The kind that comes from being deeply connected to yourself instead of constantly outsourcing your identity to public opinion. I think also some people are terrified of being misunderstood, so they overexplain themselves constantly. But being misunderstood is sometimes the cost of protecting your peace. Everybody's not going to understand you and your boundaries. Everyone's not going to always understand your evolution. And that's okay. People only understand you from the level of consciousness that they are currently operating from, anyways. So take that as you may. And honestly, some people only like the version of you that had no boundaries. Some people became comfortable benefiting from your overexposure, your over explaining and over giving. So the moment you become more intentional with your energy, they suddenly accuse you of changing. And yes, you did change. Growth should always change you. Healing and wisdom should always change you. You're not supposed to remain the same exact person forever just because other people became comfortable with your lack of boundaries. I think another important conversation here too is learning the difference between isolation and intentional privacy. Because I don't want anybody listening to think I'm encouraging unhealthy isolation or emotional suppression. Humans still need connection and they still need community, right? We still need safe places to be vulnerable and supported. But vulnerability should happen within safe containers, not automatically in front of everybody. And there's so much wisdom in selective vulnerability and who has earned access to certain parts of your story. Not everybody deserves behind the scenes access to you. And I really need you to stop feeling guilty for that. I think we also need to talk about the spiritual glamorization of visibility because that has become a thing too. There's this idea online that if you're truly aligned, truly abundant, truly successful, all of that, then your life should constantly look aesthetically beautiful and inspiring. But some of the wisest people I've ever met live very quiet lives. They move gently and privately. And some of the most powerful manifestations happen silently before anyone else even notices. Quiet doesn't mean stagnant, and protected doesn't mean you're hiding. It just simply means your spirit is no longer available for public consumption in the same way it once was. And honestly, I think that is so beautiful. There's something deeply luxurious about becoming inaccessible to chaos, and something so regal about no longer feeling obligated to respond instantly to every single notification. There's something healing about creating a home life that feels safe enough that you no longer need constant outside stimulation. This is the energy I want more people stepping into. not performative perfection or burnout. I want softness with boundaries, peace with purpose. I want people to stop sacrificing their nervous systems for algorithms. Because let me tell you something. The internet will always demand more. There will always be another trend, another post, another expectation, another reason people feel entitled to your energy. And at some point, you have to decide that your spirit matters more than the constant consumption. You have to become protective over your inner world again. And you have to ask yourself whether your current level of accessibility actually feels healthy. And if the answer is no, just know you're allowed to change it. You're allowed to reassess and reinvent your boundaries. You can become quieter. You can become more intentional. You are allowed to protect yourself. And before we close today's episode, I just want to leave you with this. Your worth is not determined by how many people are watching you. Your healing is not less valid because it happened privately. Your dreams do not become more real simply because strangers witness them online. You do not need universal access to receive divine alignment. Some of the most beautiful things in life are protected while they're growing. A seed grows underground first. A baby develops in the womb first. The moon still exists, even during phases where you cannot fully see it. And you, baddies, are allowed to have seasons where you bloom quietly too. So if you've been feeling exhausted lately, overwhelmed, emotionally overexposed, let this episode be your permission slip to reclaim your privacy. Let yourself rest. Let yourself become intentional again and reconnect with who you are away from performance and the screens. You don't owe everybody access to your spirit, to your constant updates, or to your softness. Some things deserve to remain sacred. And maybe this next season of your life is not about becoming more visible. Maybe it's about becoming more rooted. And thank you again for spending this time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, make sure you share it with somebody who may need this reminder right now. You can tag me, message me, DM me, or leave a review because I truly love hearing how these conversations land with your spirit. So until next time, protect your peace, protect your energy, and remember that your magic does not become less powerful simply because it is quiet. Bye, lovelies.